Good. How are you?
Good. All right, we'll just jump in. I will patch it all together, but we'll just jump
Yeah.
in. So I'll fire with questions. So for a little bit of gap, but both you guys are Northwood alums, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
what's it been like for you? What was it like for you coming back? What year is this now for you, Steve?
This is year 5.
Five. And Sean,
Yep.
this is what year for you?
Three for me.
Three. So
Yep.
yeah, I'll ask you first, Steve, like what was it like for you when you first came back? Because the school, I know from obviously I was there from 2016 till 2021, 22, so just before you guys would have started. And the
Yep.
place was, from what I've heard, like really different from I would imagine when you guys were both students there. So I'm curious for you, like how different was it when you first came back?
Yeah, it was, I mean, for us, I think probably for both of us, I think the values of the school were still there and like the same
Yeah.
kind of people. Northwood's been around now for 121 years, I think it is. So I felt like the community and the values were all still there. Like there's still the crazy thing was there's still teachers here today that were some of my
Yeah.
teachers. Maybe they're in different roles now. And obviously Reno, obviously being one of them who's been here for
Yeah.
57 years now, I think, and he knows everybody. But I don't know if it was like totally different. I mean, it's changed a little bit, but it's still kind of the same feelings for me. Like when I came here as a student, it was a different time. Like we didn't have the social media, we didn't have the internet really of like Instagram or whatever it is now, where like kids can go on and see all this information about all these different places. So
Right.
when I was in high school, and Shawn and I both went to the same high school, grew up in the same hometown. So
Yeah.
where we grew up, it was like we played youth hockey at, let's say, like a single or double A level. I don't even know what you consider it, but we just played local in our town. And then, our high school hockey coach, Frank Calabufo, whose son went here as well,
Yeah.
like kind of put the idea in my head of like, hey, you should maybe post grad in prep school and maybe have an opportunity to play in college. Now, when I was going through that process, it was like I knew like Colgate, Clarkson, St. Lawrence,
Right.
Oswego, Plattsburgh, Utica, maybe Hobart. And then, when you get here, it kind of expands into like this whole different world. But we didn't really
Yep.
know a lot. So when I came up, Mark Morris, was coming in my first year, and I kind of he saw me. We used to have the Empire State Games, which was like so much fun in the summer. I did it 2 summers, and then now they don't have it anymore. It's kind of disappointing, but he was able to come down and see me in like July, I think it was, and I literally came and visited. I tell everybody I visited like August 24th, and then literally was in school the next week. So it was like it
Yep.
happened fast, but the 2 years that I did were some of the two best years of my entire career, just from like I don't know. It's expensive to go to school, but I think the investment that you put into it of like the growth, the maturity, the structure, like being away from home, you're away from home, but this place really has kind of that family feel still where you still feel comfortable being here. Uh, where I think in other place, like we're only 190 kids too, right? It's very small. So
Yep.
everybody knows everybody. You're all student athletes. And I felt the same feelings I did as a student when I first came back. And I came back because Mark Morris was coming back to coach again
Right.
and reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to come be an assistant coach and work with me? I'm going to retire basically in a year or two. Like it'll be years to have. And like, I don't know, it was kind of crazy. That was like late August too. That was like third week in August. And literally I'm in another place and I'm like, I'm leaving. And we had bought a house and everything. And told my wife wasn't my wife at the time, but I was like, we're moving to Lake Placid. So it's all a full circle for me. We just had a great weekend, the prep hockey conference. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit
Yeah.
about, but it really brought me back to when I was a player here and kind of the same feelings the way the weekend went with guys that were sick or injured, and it brought back a lot of memories. So it's been fun to be back for sure. And there's a lot of great things I think still here that we still carry the same values that I had. This is my 20th anniversary this year, which is crazy,
Yep.
but it's yeah, same feelings, same emotions. So it's been fun.
Sean, a little bit less of a gap, right? You graduated from Northwood in, was it 13? Is that right?
Yep, 2013. So I only did 1 year. I did 4 years of public school at West Genesee, where Stephen went also before Northwood. I obviously had a little bit different of a track. Like I knew Northwood never really had the consideration to pursue hockey, at a serious level, honestly, past high school. So, I obviously knew Steven had come here and obviously enjoyed 2 years. And my cousin actually went here for 1 year as a post grad as well. He's 2 years older than I am. So I got to come up here and get a taste of this place while he was here. Um, and again, at that time, I wasn't necessarily sure like what route I wanted to go. Like I knew I loved hockey, but I wasn't super, super aware of what high school hockey or beyond high school hockey
Yeah,
looked like. So, it was a little bit slower for me. I had come up here on like an unofficial visit while my cousin Ryan was here, and I liked it, but I was like, you know what, I don't know if I'm ready to leave home. And I still had all my buddies. High school hockey at the time was like the greatest thing in the world. All my buddies that
right.
I had played with growing up, and we were kind of the big deal in town, and we were really
Yep.
good, and I just loved it. Um, and then once it came time to make the decision, I think this was really the only place that I had visited, other than maybe like one school that I didn't love. It was just too big for me. It was a New England school, just wasn't my vibe. And so I decided, Northwood seems like a great fit. I came here. I was one of the oldest kids in the school, and for me at that time in my life, I wasn't very mature. I
Yeah.
didn't appreciate what Northwood had to offer until years after. And I always say, like, looking back now, I wish I was fortunate enough to come here for, the 2 or 3 year period where, you get so much more value out of a place like that, like this, as opposed to just doing 1 year. And then you're like, all right, yeah, I had fun, but I was only there for 10 months. I didn't really do much or whatever. Um, so honestly, like I came here, I loved it. I made a ton of great friends, had a great experience. But like I said, like looking back on it, 5 years down the line, I'm like, wow, I really wish I spent more time at Northwood.
Hey,
Um,
for me, I noticed when I got there to that point, right? Like my background was like I've been in boarding schools. I went to school. I worked at a bunch of schools. When the opportunity for me to come to Northwood popped up, like I had been always familiar with it of like school that's got a great hockey program. I didn't
right.
know much about it, right?
Yeah.
And then as my wife and I were going through the hiring process and came up there, like to me, it's such a unique place in the best ways of like, one, getting an opportunity to live in Lake Placid is like
Yeah.
nothing else, right? And I think the way the school is structured now with having part of the campus on Main Street is so different. Um, but to your point, like I think when I got there, and I would imagine it's was the same from when you guys were there, and part of this is talking a little bit about how your programs transitioned. Like it was when we first started there, like a place where kids came to do a year or two, right?
Yeah.
Was my sense of a lot of what that population was. And then certainly during my time, and I think with what you guys are doing now, it has become a place where kids are going for 4 years, right, or 3 years, right? And I also think too, it's great, um, which gets lost in this, but I think is a key piece for some people to know, like the hockey program there is awesome, and you guys have the great ski program. But now I think with having the soccer program you guys have there as well, the diversity that exists within that 190 students is pretty shocking compared to what like most people would think of a school of that size. Like when you walk around that campus and you see all the different parts of the country and all the different parts of the world that those 190 students come from, like it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we have I had a tour of a group of I don't even know how old they were, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds last week, and we went up to the library and I was like, we have 25, I think, 25 or 26 different countries represented. And I was talking about the language lab, and there's
Right.
I think 40 different languages on campus, which is
Yep.
like I mean, I only speak English. I mean, we have French kids, we have Russian kids, we've had Ukrainian, Finnish, we've had everything. Um, but it is kind of crazy to think when you're walking around, like some of these kids speak 3 or 4 languages. You have
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that I didn't know, which I think sometimes gets lost in, I think maybe people's perception about Northwood, what drew me there, and I would imagine you guys probably felt this as students too, was um, Yeah, there's the misconception, right? Or I think sometimes people unfairly maybe group a school like Northwood into this quote unquote like academy model, which, and we can talk about that from a hockey perspective. But for me, like, um, understanding as when I was the director of admission there and obviously being a part of it, like the curriculum and academic programming that school offers was really comparable and I think really familiar to me from what I saw having worked in New England prep schools. And then like, I think it's really impressive now for people when you look at what Northwood has done in terms of college placement, not just for hockey players, like where these kids are going to school, like it's an impressive place.
Yeah, it's kind of it's crazy to think about. We're this small town place that like we're in the middle of the Adirondack Mountains. We're very lucky to be, like you said, in Lake Placid. This surprisingly, we grew up in Syracuse. There's a lot of gray days. Like the sun's out here a lot more than you think, but it's the places that these kids are going and the schools that they're getting into would probably put us on par with a lot of New England schools. I mean, every place is different.
100%.
We go through recruiting with hundreds of kids a year that we walk through applications, we watch video, we meet with them on campus. You know, this isn't the right place for every kid. Like, and we talk about that when we're recruiting. Like, Northwood to us is a little bit, I would say, more blue collar in that sense. I think a lot of the kids that we're recruiting, maybe they have a chip on their shoulder, or maybe, they're hardworking kids that really want to put the time in to really see what comes out on the other end of it. Um, and every kid's not going to fit in here into what we're trying to recruit to. So there's so many different ways to look at it, but I would put us, and sometimes too, like we have students here that come here from places that are immaculate, unbelievable, clean resumes and transcripts, and some of the best transcripts we read and some of the recommendations. And they're applying to maybe 4 or 5 different places. And maybe we're like, hey, like this is a great place for you as a student athlete. It's going to offer you all those same opportunities that maybe another place, but maybe they don't want to play 55 to 60 games. Maybe they want to play a different sport. Maybe they would feel more comfortable in a bigger environment or something. It's just different. And I think that's advantage to us about really being able to come here and be who you are as a person. I feel like every year we have all these different countries and languages and different sports and people, but at the end of the day, we want great kids in the school and we
Yeah.
want kids that really push for one another. And I always tell everybody, like, we kind of throw everybody in a blender at the start of the year and you turn it on and we're a smoothie, come May
Yeah.
15th, 16th and graduation. And there's so many moving parts, but I think our college admissions office does a great job. Those kids are always doing stuff with Mr. McCauley in the college office, working on applications. Hockey's a little bit different, with the recruiting, obviously, into
Yep.
college for a lot of places, but we're trying to find the best fit for both sides, like academically, athletically. Can you get into some schools? Everybody has dream schools. I get it. But sometimes we encourage everybody, you got to do well in school because you're just limiting that number. Like college hockey is very small. There's
Yep.
80, I think 88 D3 teams now and like 65, 66 D1 teams. When you look at the grand scheme of things with how many players there are, if you get a C in a class, well, you just crossed off, 50% of those schools, maybe. I don't know. But
Yeah.
so it's challenging, it's great, but we are pretty lucky. We've had some kids over, at least in the hockey program, that have gone on to some amazing schools at the Division 1 level, at the Division 3 level. Everybody has a different route and path to where they go. So it's
Well,
cool to
and
see.
I think in this day and age with hockey being what it is for college placement, I think one of the other things that I think is can't be overlooked about what Northwood does comparatively, not only to other boarding schools, but as you said, I think for a lot of kids who might be attracted to it, it is the idea of an extended model and playing some of that. Like the fact that I know from when I worked there, and I know still talking to David McCauley, those kids who are going to graduate from Northwood and go play junior hockey for a year or two, whatever it's going to be, the college office at Northwood is supporting them through the entirety of that process, which is so different than what you're going to get at a lot of places. And the fact that, I know talking to David a lot when he was doing it, your director of college counseling, but even when I was there, of like the challenge of like, hey, we've got this young man or woman, right, who graduated from here 2 or 3 years ago, and like we need to get the recommendations and the transcript, and our college office is going to advocate for them at the college level in concert with what the coaches of their junior team are doing. Like to me, that's an advantage that like you can't, that I think it's invaluable, and I don't know how many other places offer it in that same way.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many applications are submitted per year. Every year is different, but he is in there grinding some nights pretty late. And we keep in touch with our alumni, obviously, the kids that are playing junior, and they're always reaching out like, hey, like, can you connect me with Mr. McCauley? I need to get this to apply to this school or, whatever. And he's always on it. It's really about the communication between the offices and just making sure that we're all on the same page. And David understands like where we're at with certain kids and when they're ready to go to school, that we're making sure we have everything basically in a folder to just send off when it's ready to hit send.
Yeah. So this year too, for you guys, I don't know if it's a shift back in some ways to what it was, or kind of how you talk about the new, but like this was the first year in at least a few years you had a U16 team, right? So yeah, Shawn, talk a little bit about that. I have two clients I worked with last year who are on that U16 team who've
Yep.
had an unbelievable experience and have loved it. But like, I guess just talk a little bit through about why shifting back to that model, obviously how it's been successful for you. And Steve, you and I have talked a little bit about this, right? There is now this conversation around what is the best development path for kids at that age group. And for you guys, obviously offering this, it's a firm belief that this is what's going to serve kids best at that age.
Yeah, I think, in my 2 years with Stephen at the prep level, my first year, I think we had graduated, 17 guys, Steve. Last
Yeah, probably
year,
around that.
15 or so. And, when we go through the whole recruiting process, it's very difficult at that level to just recruit an entirely new batch of kids.
Yep.
And, we had talked about, probably my first year at the end of it, and then obviously more so last year, about getting a 16U team back and getting it going, and how beneficial it would be for not only the hockey program, but for the school. Just getting in those younger kids at, freshman, sophomore class, and being able to recruit from the ground up. And then, ideally you're, again, developing those kids at the younger level, and then by year end, or this year we have 3 2010s that they'll be back next year with our 16U team. But those 09s this year, get them ready, or as close to ready as they possibly can, to make that jump to the prep level. So I think going into it last year, like, we went through the ringer, I think, mid December, obviously January, February, March, of going through tons of applications and talking to tons of families, like on campus visits, Zoom calls, phone calls, emails, like you name it, nonstop all winter, just trying to get the best kids into the school and into the program that we thought would have been a good fit for a first year program, to see how far we could go with it, and to put us in a good situation recruiting wise for the following year for our prep team. So, I think last year it was a lot of like, trial and error. Like, who do we
Yep.
think would be a great fit? Like, is he a good kid first and foremost? Is he a good student? Obviously the financial aspect is very difficult to work through. And then, you got to be good, right? Like, the hockey team has to perform. You have to have talented players. And, I think we did a good job for a first year team of doing that, like putting a great package of kids together. Obviously the start of this year, to be honest with you, was a total nightmare. Like, I think we had 20, 15, 16-year-olds show up on campus. And, for me, it kind of was my fault, because over the summer I was like, let's try and get these guys, you know, connected before they get on campus, so they're not all terrified and
Yep.
homesick the first week. And, I think it went a little further than I was anticipating. And they got on campus and they thought they ran the school and walked around as a big posse. And everybody was like, these kids are really annoying. They're too much. They all live in the same dorm. So we had to kind of knock them down a peg. There was a lot of, again, immaturity aspect, like new place, just getting acclimated to it. And Northwood's a tough place to adjust to. Like there are kids that, were totally fine. Like they were excited to be away from home. And then there's other kids that like, they've never been more
Yeah, it's
than a day
hard.
or two away from mom and dad. And so there's a lot of like getting them like, hey, like you're gonna be okay. Just give us some time. Like get busy during the day. Don't just sit in your room. Like make sure you're out socializing in class, you're engaged. And then when we're on the ice, like don't be scared to like, not be one of those top guys. Like I think that was the biggest thing. Everybody came here and wanted to be that top dog on the team, and their skill sets maybe weren't that, or they were coached differently, and they were their best player on their old team and maybe they're not on this team. So there was a lot of, kind of ego checking and just getting the kids to understand what Northwood was all about and to just buy in and be a good community member. That was a big growing process for the first month and a half. We went through a little adversity as a group, unfortunately. Like it just, there were some things that didn't work out in some areas and had to make some changes, but I think we got through it as a group. And ultimately I think us facing that adversity as a group pushed us along to really set us up for a good year. I think it,
Yep.
for a first year team, like we had expectations, and for me, I was like, we're going to be good. Like I want to be one of those top teams. I want to play the toughest schedule. I want to be a really good team. And I think underestimated, you know, the level of knowledge, like maybe working with prep the last 2 years and working with Steve, like I had tried in my mind, I was like, I'm going to run this team just like we run prep. And,
Yeah, you forget how young
I'm
they are.
like, oh my God, like this can't happen. Like they're not getting it. Like, cause everybody was coached differently from years past, and not everybody knows the same things. And a lot of it was just like foundational skill stuff, which, we basically had to start fresh, start from the ground up. And, it was a lot of teaching, a lot of slow days where I'm like, all right, I know this isn't the most fun thing in the world, but we have to teach you guys, where you're supposed to be in the D zone or neutral zone forecheck, or even just like breakout passes, like just working on the most simple things. And we saw a lot of improvement, a lot of development in a short period of time. I think towards the end of November into December before Christmas break, and then certainly after Christmas break, like we've had a really good stretch where, I think the development and improvement was so much better than we were anticipating. And, my coach, Justin Felber, who's also an alum of Northwood, like we always joke, like, yeah, it's all the coaching. But at the end of the day, it's the kids that really, they bought into everything that we sold them, just from a pure Northwood hockey program standpoint, like showing up every day, working hard, competing. If you're not doing those things, your career is going to be very short. So I think once they saw the results, once they show up every day, they put the work in, and then we can start working on a little more like offensive zone stuff, like fun
Yep.
stuff where they actually want to do, like score some goals in practice. And then we saw that getting better. And then, our performances in games against those top teams, we started seeing results where we're like, all right, like we're right there. Like we're losing the, top 10 teams in the country by 1 or 2 goals. And, we beat a really good team a couple weeks ago at South Kent. And, so for us, it's been a long process. It's been a long year, but again, we've had a ton of fun with the young kids. And I think all the kids have really appreciated their time here at Northwood, and they see the value. And I think the parents really, from the start of the year to where we are now, they're like blown away by, one, the maturity of their son at this point in the year, and two, just how much better we've gotten as a group. So
Yep.
I think it's a funny story. We were out in Ohio right after Christmas break, and we took the guys out to dinner, and there were a couple of parents there. And so we were talking to them, and one of the dads was like, I don't know what you guys are doing at that school, but I've never heard my son one time say, I can't wait to go back to school. Like he
That's
wanted
great.
to leave home during Christmas break and just get back to Northwood and be with his buddies. And because they're comfortable here now, like it's home away from home, and they love it. And I think it's just a testament to how we do things here.
So I'll ask, I guess, for both of you, and then Stephen, we're going to talk a lot about your prep team too. But one of the questions I'm faced with a lot from the families I work with, right? And this was the case for the two boys I had there who were there last year, and for some of the kids who are going through it, right? While I think you're right that like Northwood is its own unique place, and I think you're 100% right. It's going to be the right fit for the right kid who wants what that school offers. Um, you guys know this, right? A lot of the kids who are going to be looking at Northwood are going to be looking at, for lack of a better term, some of those more traditional prep schools, right? So like while hockey wise, we're going to talk about like you guys compete with Shattuck and Culver and things like that because of your location. I know at least for a lot of the kids I'm working with, and I would imagine it's true, like in the Northeast, they're going to look at, you know, Northwood, and then they're going to look at Salisbury and Avon and Kimball Union and Berkshire and Taft and that group of schools. And in my experience in the last couple of years, those teams are getting younger, right? Like they're starting to draw younger kids and provide opportunities for younger kids who would normally be at that U16 age group to maybe be a part of their play a role somewhat in their varsity program. But what are the advantages for those kind of kids for you in that U16 model, right? Because it is really different and there are some advantages. And I ask it because I get asked that question a lot, and I'm sure you guys have some thoughts on like, hey, this is why this progression can best serve a kid.
Yeah, I think that it's a really challenging topic right now. I think just
Yeah,
because of the way junior hockey has gone this year, right? Like but it's not every kid, right? I
right,
think every kid thinks that and wants that, but doesn't realize what it might take to get to that point. Now, in years past, have we had some younger kids on our prep team? 100%. But those guys were, one a few years ago was a first round draft pick in the NHL this year. That's the difference,
right.
right?
Bill Zonin, right?
Yeah, everybody
Yeah,
in their
I remember
mind.
Bill.
And when Bill was here as a 14 turning 15-year-old kid that probably was, to be honest, super immature, but like over the year and over time, like he got better and he got really good.
Yep,
It took him time. And he had a lot of tough conversations. But now, like if you see the transition now to where he is now, like he's a man, like he's become that. He's trained, he's physically ready to be there. When he was here, he was just a super talented young kid that like didn't want to do study hall and didn't want to do homework,
right.
So like there's different kids in different paths, but like our biggest goal here is number one, like we have conversations with our guys that are maybe they reclass and now they're like, should I graduate and like go play junior or should I come back? And I'm like, okay, let's look at this two different ways. One, you can stay at Northwood, you can play in the role you want to be in. You can play maybe top minutes, you can play power play, penalty kill. You can play in all these situations, or you can go to a junior team as an 18-year-old probably with 19 and 20-year-olds. Okay, now you're competing against grown men and you're probably going to
Yep,
be in the role that you don't want to be in and you don't want to play that way. So that becomes the conversation that we have with a lot of kids. And then with the younger kids, with Shawn's team, it's like, hey, let's get you really good at the level you're at, right?
yep,
And now move on and maybe play prep. And now you're going to play a bigger role on prep. We're like, hey, like we have kids every year. Like I could probably have a few of Shawn's kids play with us, but it's like I always say like the NHL, AHL thing. A guy in the American Hockey League that puts up 100 points gets bumped up to the NHL and he's on the fourth line playing 6 or 7 minutes,
right,
right? Like, how is that? How is he going to crack that? Like,
right.
how is he going to prove that he's a top six forward on an NHL team when he is in the American League? So, like, for us, it's kind of similar. Like, if we have a young kid, well, like, I can pull him up, Shawn, and I got to protect him and make sure he's out there in the right situations to make sure that he's not getting killed out there. Maybe he's
Or his
not
confidence
physically there.
crushed,
Yeah, or
right?
his
Like,
confidence. So how am I going to protect this kid? But also I have to take away ice time maybe from one of our guys that's put in all this time to be with us, right?
yep,
Um, it's a totally a tough conversation. I think value wise, I believe honestly, we have three teams here. We have six coaches. Okay, three of them are alumni of Northwood School. Um, we have another coach that played at the Division 1 level of the an Ivy League, who is super educated, had a really successful career. Like I think we have another our assistant coach this year who played at Culver for 3 years. Like
yep,
I feel like we have six guys that are truly great coaches in our program. Where maybe, and don't quote me on it, but like I know other places, maybe the top team has a couple of really good coaches, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the next level of development, maybe they have a good coach, maybe they have one guy, but maybe he's not with them all the time. Maybe with your local AAA team, like you practice twice a week, he might do film once a month. They just don't have the time. They might have like a regular job that they're trying to balance too with this team. So for us, we're here every day. We're on the ice every day with them. We're doing video with them as much as we can around their class schedule. We're in the fitness center couple days a week as a team. There's always open gym. There's a shooting room. There's areas here that I feel like we can really mold them and get them ready for that next step. Not every single kid is going to be ready to play prep, and that's okay. Like, I feel like a lot of families we talk to are so nervous about what everybody else is doing.
100%.
And I'm like, I get it, but that's not you. As much as you can say that, it's really hard to understand it as the parent and the player. Like their kids are all the greatest players in the world. I get it. Like I understand that. Um, but when we're with them every single day and we see how they are, whether they're in a good mood, bad mood, they got 8 hours of sleep, they got three, they were up till whatever, every day is different. And
Yep.
some days, like a kid might not have a good day, and then he has a bad practice, and then it carries over into the weekend of the games, and the parents are like, well, I don't understand what's going on with him. I don't get it. Like, why is he playing? He had a bad week. Like, it's part of the
Yep.
maturity process of being here. But for us, those are going to be conversations that we're going to have challenging every year. I can probably promise and tell a kid like you're going to come here and you're going to play. Like we might have a couple of kids that we're back and forth with that are getting opportunities, maybe at a New England prep school, let's say, to play on the top team. But we're also, if they come here and play at U16, they're playing a really good schedule. They're on the ice every day. We're playing 55 to 60 games a year
Yep.
between all of our programs. And that's just getting you more opportunity, more repetitions, more chances to develop. Where, traditionally maybe they start in New England, I think it's November, and they go 35, 37 games. Then they go into their spring sport. So it's a little bit different in that regard, but we're always going to have those conversations. I think for us, it's like when we have the right kids that really want to be here, they're kind of all in on what we're telling them and how we want to see them develop in our program. And Shawn has done a phenomenal job with that group this year. There's kids that honestly they visited last year about this time and we were like kind of on the fence. And then they grew 3 or 4 inches over the course of
Yeah.
the summer. And they come in September. And now there's a couple of kids on that team that Shawn and I are like, should we be considering these guys for prep next year? Like they've matured that
Yeah.
much. Um, and it's always going to be a topic of conversation. This year in our league, we had one 2010 that played in our league. He's probably going to be a first round draft pick, right? So
Right.
those are the outliers. I'm not saying it's everybody, and I'm not saying that kids can't do it. I just would like to see kids be able to be in the situations that are going to maximize their potential from day one. And
Yeah.
that's where we have that conversation. Like, yeah, it's great. You can go play on the prep team, but how much ice are you going to get? How much they can sit here and say, hey, like if you come here as for next year, for example, like a 10 well, 11s would be too young, but let's say a 10 and we're battling with that. It's like you can come here and play on our top power play and play on our whatever. I don't know if I can believe them completely because I know how those teams are structured with their age levels and the status. Like, but it is what it is. It's part of it. We deal with it. Um, but I think for most kids, I think really dominating where you're at first
Yeah.
and then making your way up the ladder is you're gonna have that much more confidence. I'm telling you right now, if you're scoring goals and you're playing 25 minutes a night, you're gonna have a lot more fun than playing 5 or 6 and really struggling. Now mentally, that becomes a thing now too. Like it seems to be a common thread with all the stuff going on
Yeah.
extrinsically in these kids' worlds. It really affects their intrinsic, motivators to be a great player and really love the game as opposed to worrying about, oh, like I didn't get any calls on January 1, like I must not
Right.
be good enough.
Well, I think the other thing that's so interesting to me is like it now takes longer than ever to play college hockey, longer than it
Yeah.
ever has. But like with the changes to the CHL and the restructuring of junior hockey and whatever it is, yeah, I'm also having more of these conversations now with kids at a younger age who feel like, well, I need to make sure that I'm going to have this much time between when I graduate high school and college to play this amount. And like, for me, it's always, I think to that point of like, look, there is going to be no one path for any kid. But I think to your point, right, like what has always been true when it was kids were going directly from prep hockey to college, or what is now is like, if you're good enough at this level, you're going to get an opportunity at the next level, right? It will always work that way. And whether that means you're graduating a place like Northwood at 18 or graduating at 19, and the number of years you're going to play in junior hockey, like in my mind, some of that is irrelevant because, like, if you're good enough, you will get an opportunity at the next level. Like, I think for guys like us who've been around it, like not youth hockey parents, and you hear whatever you hear in rinks, like, I've never known a player where it that the like, well, he was good enough to do it, but he didn't get the opportunities, or no one like that doesn't really happen, right? Like if you're good enough, you'll get there. So for me, it is whether it's the conversation that we're having about like U16 versus prep, or like reclassifying versus not reclassifying, like obviously, as you said, Steve, like there's every kid's situation is going to be different, but I'm much more of the mindset of like, I don't know what you're rushing towards here, right? Like it's a long road, and like slow down, take advantage of it. I think one of the great things that you hit on there too, and I think Northwood does a really good job of this, is like put yourself in an environment where like, you know, you're going to be tested, right? Like you guys are, as you said, like you guys are practicing a lot. You're playing 55 games. You're doing it. For a lot of kids, the idea of like, well, I want to play Division I college hockey, or I want to play college hockey, or whatever it is. The idea of it seems great. Like going to a place like Northwood where you're going to be tested like that. You reach a point where you have to answer that question of like, do I love this? Like, is this what I really want to do? And if it is, great. And if it's not, like that's okay too. But I think for some people, it's that idea of like, well, my kid's got to get on this path, and if he does this, then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And the reality is, it's never that way. But I've felt that in some ways more too, of like, not even specifically to this conversation, just that feeling of parents feeling like, it's got to go quicker now. Like, and I'm like, for what reason? Like, he's still not playing college hockey. I don't care at the Division I or Division III level, probably till he's at least 20. So, like, where are you rushing off to?
Yeah,
But it
it's
is
it's
interesting,
it's crazy. And I sit in here with recruits all the time, and Shawn can attest this. I will sit in here with a family and be like, I can't promise you if you come to Northwood that you're going to play college hockey. I'm not going to
right?
sit here and tell you that. I can promise you that you're going to grow up, you're going to have great structure, you're going to learn good habits, you're really going to grow up and understand, hey, maybe there's something else that I love more than hockey that I can pursue. Like we had a couple of kids a few years ago that were here, they both got into med school and they're like, Coach, should I go play junior hockey? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, go to med school. Like,
Right,
find a men's league. You can always find hockey, but like if you pass up this opportunity, you try to go play juniors for a year or 2 years, I'm telling you, you're gonna be in the same boat in 2 years. So
right.
like, and some kids leave here and go to college, and some kids want to play junior. Some kids want to play junior for 3 years, which is crazy. Some are one and
Right.
out, but like I said, yeah, I don't know what the rush is either, because you want to prolong your career as long as possible. Like you want to play
Yeah.
for as long as you can. We cannot play hockey forever, even at the highest level. Like they can't play until they're, 65 and collecting Social Security. Like,
Unless you're Yager, right? Who
yeah,
somehow found a way to do
exactly.
that, right?
But you want to you okay, let's look at hockey from a perspective of like, what does hockey give you? Okay, hockey gives you it teaches you about team. It teaches you about playing for one another. It teaches you about sacrificing maybe individual accolades for team success. It teaches you about adversity. It teaches you and challenges you in different ways that maybe you never thought would be imaginable. Well, those are life skills. Like when you move on and you get a job, we talk to our kids that are graduating. I'm like, at the end of the day, you were a great teammate. Someone's going to want to hire you because they're going to want to work with you. Like they don't
Yep.
want to work with people that are constantly pointing fingers or complaining about this, or like, I didn't get this opportunity, I didn't get that. Well, at the end of the day, like if you're not making sales, like what are we
Yep.
doing? So And we have that conversation with a lot of families too, is like, at the end of the day, okay, I'm not calling you and asking you about, what you're selling and why your product isn't good enough for me, or like whatever. Like we're trying to do what's best for each individual and the kids, and teach them, hey, like we have some tough conversations in here. We've had conversations with kids too where we're like, look, I see you maybe playing at the club hockey level,
Yep.
and let's extend your career for another 4 years. You're going to build more relationships. You're going to meet new people. You're going to set yourself up for success, but you're
Have
still
a
going to get to
great
play hockey.
experience at some of those club programs.
Exactly. And some of them are unbelievable schools. I'm like, why would you sacrifice your academics to
Yeah.
go to some school because you just want to go and play hockey? Like that's
Yeah.
the reality. At the end of the day, and I say like in 4 to 6 years, you're going to be working. Like you're gonna have to
Yep.
find a job and a family, and everything changes. And I wish I could tell you you could play until you're 40, but like it just doesn't happen. So like trying to have those real conversations for us is important. And they're not always going to want to hear it, but I always say like I'd rather tell them the truth and be honest and work with them now. So in 5 years down the road, they're not calling me and be like, you gave me all this wrong
Yeah.
information. You were lying to me about whatever. Like, no, this is the reality, right? When you get to the next level, like juniors, you might not be playing as much as you will. You might not be in the lineup. You might have to have a conversation with the coach to figure out, is there a better place for me to play, or what do I need to do to play more? Like
And do you
that's
love
part of
it
it.
enough, right? To
Yeah.
ride the bus, to
Yeah.
do those things. Like, do you love it enough that you want to do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I often see like that's the question I don't think kids ask themselves enough, right? I think
Yeah.
I see it all the time now, in part because of how much of a commitment it takes in terms of time, how much of a commitment it takes financially for families, that reaching that point of like, are you doing this because you really love it, or is this something like you started down this road when you were 9 and like now you're doing it because like, well, this is the next logical step? And I think that to your point of like a program like Northwood really does in some ways like force that question of you athletically, like, is this really what you want to do? And I think again, I go back to I don't know that there are many other places that do that while providing you the kind of academic experience you're going to have at a place like Northwood. And also, beyond it, the opportunity to try different things, to live in an unbelievable town. Like to me, it's all of those things which, you know, I think it is. It's this great place where yeah, I often tell people when I'm describing it, like, look, you are going to get all of the benefits academically that you would find at most other prep schools. And from a hockey standpoint, it does have this great program, but it is a place that is going to allow you to really understand and explore, like, hey, this is what you love, this is what you're passionate about. It's going to create opportunities, but I think also create real clarity for kids around like, is this what you want? Is this really what you want?
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely challenging. I mean, it's challenging for coaches too, right? Like when you're playing 55 to 60 games and you're practicing, I don't know, 80 to 100 times a year, like you have to be
right,
invested in it. The prep school lifestyle, it's a lifestyle. It's not just a job.
for
Like it's a
sure.
lifestyle every day. And you're from September, we get here after Labor Day, we start skating, I think like the second or third day we're here, and we go till mid-March, and it's 7 days a week,
Yeah,
and that, like you said, it really, I think a lot of kids sit and think like, is this really, something that I want to pursue for the rest of my career in hockey? But something that I really, really am passionate about, or like I'm passionate about it 3 out of 4 days a week, or four out of
right.
five, 4 out of 7 days. Like it's different. And, I find too, like it takes a lot of guys some time to adjust when they get here, but when they do, this is like the greatest experience. I always talk about the experience of being here. It's more than hockey. Hockey's the hub of the wheel, right? Like everybody wants to come here because they see, these banners, they see the history, they see the people that have gone through the doors here, from Olympians to NHL players to D1 to D3 to club, everything. It's more than that. And I think that's what, when I was a student here, I always tell our kids, I remember doing all the things that I could do to stay occupied as a teenage boy in prep school, like running around the halls, like we used to do dish crew. Shawn and I talk
Yep.
about doing dish crew, like playing starting a baseball league, rollerblading into town for milkshakes. Like I could barely talk about how many, like the games that we played in. That to
Yeah.
me was the experience. And I think that's where the investment piece gets twisted a little bit. Like families are so invested in hockey now, and hockey is super expensive across the board that they're putting so much value in finances into it. They're like, when am I going to get my, I guess, break? Or like,
Yeah.
when is
What's the
this going to
return,
play
right?
out? Yeah. And that's the toughest challenge, I think, because they see, let's say there's 100 kids there. You play on a team of 25 guys, and there's like 7 guys that commit to a school, and they're like, well, I've invested just as much time and money into
Yep.
this. Where's my opportunity? Well, it might be like 2 years down the road, but if you start thinking about poor me, like, no one's going to care about. Like there's too many good players now, and there's too many opportunities in leagues where kids are really pushing. That's where it's like, hey, are you going to do that, extra time in the gym? Are you going to invest your money into a personal trainer or ice time in the summer with a coach, where instead of like, you know, sitting around and playing video games or reading, doing whatever, I don't know, but we try to push our kids to say, hey, like, are you actually training, or are you just going to the gym and working out? Right? Like
Yep.
you have to be invested in it. And the best kids that we've had over the years are really committed to like the whole prep school life, right? You get up in the morning, you eat breakfast. We have 2 different schedules here. We have the schedule like a normal school day from September to November, which is like 8 to 2:30. That's a long day. And then you have to go on the ice. Then you have to go in the fitness center. Then you have to go to dinner. Then you have study hall. Then you have lights out, right? Now, when we go to the winter, we're like, okay, we're up at 7 or maybe a little before 7. We go to breakfast. We work out in the fitness center. Then we go to the rink. Then you come back and eat lunch. Then you have class from 12 till about 5. Then you have, a couple hours to eat dinner, maybe, get your stuff organized for the next day, or go over to the open gym and shoot pucks or train some more. And then you have study hall and lights out. Like, you have to be invested in that. You
Yep.
can't just be like, hey, I'm going to go to half the school day and then I'll go home for the day and hang out.
Right.
Like, it's just not, that's part of it. And I think that, like, some of these kids that have gone on to college, like, college is easy.
Yep.
Northwood
Yep.
was hard. And every single kid that I've talked to since I've been back that graduated from here is like, I 100% wish I was still at Northwood.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing for us as coaches, is to talk to kids. Shawn and I have gone to a couple college games this year and caught up with some of our kids that are playing, and we've talked to kids in junior. It's a different world. And that's why I really believe in the overall experience. Like, we're always going to have a ton of inquiries. It's about, like I said at the beginning, finding the right fit of kids that really want to be here, but really want to have the experience of being a Northwood student.
Yeah. And I do, Shawn, I have some more questions about the U16, but while we're on it, like, Steve, I want to tell you, like, give you a chance to talk a little bit about, like, yeah, winning the prep hockey conference. And I think for some people understanding, like, the other teams that are in that, right? And what
Yeah.
that looked like last weekend, because that is a pretty impressive accomplishment.
Yeah, I know. Poor Shawn. Shawn was with me the last 2 years. We lost in the
I want to talk
championship two
about it.
years in a row, and um, so yeah, it was. I mean, the league. There's so many good teams and so many good players, and when I look over the course of the 5 years, I think that's been since I've been back, this league has kind of evolved. And when Chad was here, or before Mark and I came, he kind of started working with these other teams and organized this league because we wanted to have the best product. Like,
Yep.
in order to compete with a lot of other places and schools, like, what are we going to show that makes us one of the best, right? So they started this league. So it's us in Mount St. Charles in Rhode Island, and South Kent in Connecticut. And then it's Culver in Indiana, Shattuck in Minnesota, and St. Andrews is up in Toronto, Aurora, Ontario.
Yep.
Those 6 teams form. There's an East and a West. So we play everybody 4 times in the East. Everything's ranked, one, first, second, third on the East, and then the same in the West. And then we do these crossover weekends where we did one up at St. Andrews in November. We did one here in January in Lake Placid. And then we just flew out and played playoffs in Shattuck, St. Mary's. Now, the last 2 years, we finished first in the East. So we had a bye. We didn't play Friday. We played Saturday, Sunday. This year, South Kent finished first in the East. We actually went down there a couple weeks ago. and it was like basically the games were for first place. We lost,
Yeah.
but so we had a tough road. I mean, this was by far the hardest road I think we've had in PHC. I know my first year as head coach, we beat St. Andrews in double overtime, and then we lost to Shattuck, I think 2-1. And then last year we played Culver in the semis. We beat them, and then we lost to St. Andrews in the championship. So this year, going into it, I'm like, all right, great. We finished second. Our first game is against St. Andrews College. Like, there's no easy game. So we go up
Right.
against St. Andrews College. We've played them 4 times already this year. We've beaten them 3. Like, this is going to be the toughest game of the weekend. Anything can happen. They're super skilled. They're well coached. Like, we beat them 1-0. Okay,
Yep.
so we scored on a power play goal, I think. And we're like, okay, now we go into the next day. St. Andrews is the number one ranked team in Canada. Okay, so we beat them. The next day we go in and we have to play Culver, who we haven't beaten this year. We've played them 3 times, I think, and we lost to them early on in the season. We lost to them in a tournament in New Hampshire, and then we lost to them up in Lake Placid in overtime. So I'm like, okay, they're the number one ranked team in the US right now.
Yep.
So here we go. We go up 2-0. They tie it 2-2, and we scored with like 3 minutes left, I think, maybe, and went up 3-2 and then won that game. And now we're like, okay, now we have to go up against Shattuck St. Mary's, who has traditionally been the number one ranked team. They're number 2 behind Culver this year.
Yep.
And I'm like, I have no idea what can happen in this game. We had guys that were sick. We had one guy missed the game. We got guys just battling all weekend. 3 tough games in 3 days. And we first period 0-0. We come out in the second. It was probably the best period of hockey I've ever seen. We scored 4 goals in like 7 minutes, and we were up 4-0 going into the third. And we play like everything fell into place at the right time. And it's the hardest league I've ever been a part of because there's so
Yep.
much talent and the coaching is so great. There's so many good people that are involved. The teams like, I mean, I think this year anybody could have won it, but for us to go through those 3 teams, like that's the whole PHC West, which in the past 5 years arguably have been the best 3 teams in our league overall,
Yep.
I believe. You know, South Kent and us are pretty close. Mount won nationals, I think, my first year. And I think Shattuck won PHC like 3 years in a row, and then St. Andrews finally broke it last year, and then we won it this year. But every year, at no game's easy. It's just like it's fun hockey. You're playing 20-minute periods. Like it's like college rules. There's a ton of exposure to it. I mean, NHL all the way down to junior hockey. And I mean, I don't even know how to like describe the weekend. It was just one of those, it just seemed the kids were determined. Like they had it in their minds. Every kid's goal when they get here is like, we want to win the PHC every year,
Right.
and like last year's group was super exciting. We had great kids. This year we have great kids. And I told them at the end of the game, like every year we build out the team a specific way. Like these are the kids we really believe in that can do this. And we've had some ups and downs this year, but that weekend they really like they believed they could do it. And I mean, against those teams, I don't you just don't know. Like literally it's
Yeah.
one game at a
Yeah.
time. And
Minutes. That's a gauntlet to run any year,
it
right?
was crazy. It was crazy. But I'm super happy for the kids and for the school, obviously. Like winning that league is really, I think personally, in my opinion, that we have 6 of the best prep schools in North America. Don't get me wrong, there's New England schools that we play every year that I think are great schools and great people and great
Yeah.
hockey. But the way we play and the amount of games we play to get to that point in the season is like, holy smokes, I can't believe we just did this. It's still kind of
Yeah.
like setting in this week of like, wow, I think the kids are still like, holy smokes, guys, like we pulled it out, like we did it. It was
Yeah.
really exciting for them.
So for you guys, and I'll ask Shawn too, right? So you have the PHC, and then I think for you guys beyond that, you play an incredible schedule and have the independence to schedule, as you said, like you've got New England prep schools, you've got some great club teams from around the country. Shawn, what's the structure of like the game schedule for the U16s? Like how do you guys determine that?
Yeah, I think this year, last spring, like it was a little challenging just being like a first year 16U AAA team, getting those top caliber teams on the schedule early. Like I think there was still a little bit of confusion of like, hey, Northwood's got another team. Like I don't know what level
Right.
it's at. So like explaining that, like, hey, like I would love to get you guys on the schedule. And they're like, wait, is this like your varsity team? And I'm like, no, we're back to 16U AAA. Like we're gonna play a predominantly 16U AAA schedule. So, we went about it like trying to mirror the prep schedule as much as we could. Like we play the Mounts, we play the South Kents, we play Nichols, Gilmore, Stansted, all those teams in the Northeast, and a lot of those high end AAA teams. Again, that like we're trying to mirror the prep schedule to give them a similar experience because all the teams that our prep team is playing, like they have a feeder system of 16s that are traditionally very good, 15s traditionally very good, all the way down to maybe 14s. So trying to get on that same wavelength of like, hey, like we want to give these kids the same type of experience where every single game, like whether we're expected to win or not, like I want to be able to say we're playing one of the most competitive schedules in the country and just be more appealing in that sense because obviously we've played teams where the kids are like, why are we playing these guys? And I'm like, all right, just we got to focus, like play our game and just get through it. Like let's not just show up and go through the motions. Like I want you guys playing the right way. And yeah, we'll win a game here and there, like 10-1 or whatever, and it is what it is. But then when we do face, the South Kents or like Woodbridge, like we played Woodbridge, New Jersey Rockets, like those types of teams that they're very, very excited to play because, they see the kids that are committed on those teams or they see like, hey, they're top 15 ranked team in the country. Like we got to get up for this one. So, those are the types of teams that we want to play. Like I think next year it'll be a lot cleaner structure. Like again, Steve and I have talked a lot more about doing, additional weekends together. We did one at Clarkson with BK, Gilmore, and Nichols with both prep and 16s. Like we're probably going to do, at least one more of those next year because it was great hockey, like super competitive, all 3 games on the weekend. And continue going to some certain events. Like we go to USHL Cup in Rochester in December. This year we went up to Chateauguay in Quebec, which, to be honest, is probably the most competitive hockey we've played all year.
Yeah.
We played the top U18 teams in Quebec, and it was like, similar feel probably for our guys that Steve and the prep guys feel like you see the NHL jackets in the crowd, and the
Right.
kids are all like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, we don't belong here. But then it's like, guys, just show up and play. Like, it's part of the experience. Like, you want to be in a situation where, you're playing against some really talented kids, whether they beat you up or not. Like, you gave it your best and you put yourself in a good spot to improve. So, I think next year we're going to, again, our priority is to play 55 extremely competitive games. Like, again, it's hard to manage that when you go to some tournaments and they're, teams you don't necessarily want to play. But, I think again, the Northwood program, like everybody wants to play Northwood, again, at the prep level, like you see Northwood on the schedule, you want to beat Northwood. And I think we want that for the younger group too. Just again, for, recruiting purposes too. Like when we're saying like who we're playing, we showcase the schedule, kids are like, wow, that's a great schedule. Like I would love to be in that situation where we're playing those types of teams all the time, every single weekend. So again, that's having a good year one schedule. Like we've been, the second half's kind of been a gauntlet for us. And I think that's kind of the trend I want to stick with next year as far as like quality of teams.
And you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, weren't this year, are going to stay with, and we could talk through. I know when I was the director of admission, we had lots of conversations around like being national bound versus not, right? And like, I will tell you, when I was there as the director of admission, I fought hard for it not to be because like I thought in terms of um, yeah, I thought it allowed us to bring in not just more talented hockey players, but a wider range, right? Because we weren't limited by the roster limitations.
Yeah.
That being said, I also know that there's value, right, in participating in those things. So like, what's the plan? Because that's another question I get, right? Like, hey, what are you guys going to do with the USA Hockey thing? So what is your plan moving forward with that?
Yeah, I
You want me
think
to- yeah, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. We've talked about it.
Yeah,
It's a touchy subject because yes, it
yeah,
is very optically appealing. Like every single kid, especially on my team, is like he's like, all right, we can do nationals. Like we're under the limit of imports or whatever. I'm like, guys, we're gonna play 59 games by the end of the season. That's basically an additional month of the year where it adds to the grind. Like we've gone all the way from beginning of September, like Steve mentioned, our season ends March 9, and like you can just visibly see it. Like everybody is completely burnt out and they're banged up or tired. I'm tired. Steve's tired. Like everybody's just exhausted from a long year. I think
I
it would
can
be,
tell you when I was there, I used to people would argue like it was important. The argument I would make, I
yeah,
would always like who won last year,
right,
and no
exactly.
one would know.
I
So I was
don't
like, well,
think,
I can't like how important could it be? But I
yeah,
do, yeah.
I think
I'm
they
glad
all
to hear
see
you
it
guys are
too.
still
Like,
debating it. And that wasn't just me forcing that argument.
right. I think too, like it's all the kids, like they're on Instagram, they're on social
Right.
media, and they're like, wow, that looks sick. Like I want to be there. Like, but like you go out to Vegas for nationals at 16U and like, yeah, maybe there are a couple scouts, there are a couple coaches, but I don't think there's as much value in it for us at least that people believe there is. Like we've talked about doing it at 16s. Like I don't, with prep playing in the PHC, like that's probably on par with the quality of hockey for nationals because they are playing the top teams in the country more consistently, and their season's long and hard enough. But it all depends on the recruiting for us too. Like you said, like we're branched out all over the world, really. Like we're getting inquiries from kids from Russia, Ukraine, Sweden, Finland, we're obviously Canada, like wherever. And, we don't want to limit ourselves from bringing in great kids that get to experience Northwood because that's, like you talked about it early, like we're so diverse in this place and, giving kids an opportunity to come here from all over the world is great for the school and great for the hockey program. And, we don't want to limit ourselves in that capacity, but you never know. Like it would be great. I think it'd be fun to experience and just go and see what happens. And obviously, you got to get out of New York State. Like New York State's not an
Yeah.
easy state to get out of for nationals. So that's like the first layer that people don't understand is like you got to win like 4 really hard games at our level to even make it. So, but you never know. Like, well, we've talked about it. It could happen, could not. Like, I'm not like sold either way. I really could care less. I think our season is it's great. The kids are on the ice more than enough in our opinion, and it just would be something added.
Yeah, and I think too, just to add a little bit is like, what's our end goal? Is it to develop the kids and move them on to the next place, or is it to win a national championship banner?
Yep.
Like what's the banner doing for us? Like our program, I feel like, to be honest, yeah, like maybe nationals would help us be more nationally recognized, right? Like we haven't been to nationals in a long time. So like if some places like maybe like when we were recruiting kids from California, like we're telling them, hey, we're Northwood, we're in Lake Placid, and they're like, well, we only know Shattuck, right? So
Right.
like, or like some kids they travel on these tier one things. They go to Chicago, they go to Dallas, they go to Arizona, they go to Blaine or whatever, Minnesota. Like they see those other schools there, or they see the other teams that might be in the nationals over the years. If you're a 14 or 15-year-old kid and you go on my hockey rankings and you see like I don't know. That's probably what a lot of parents do to look at the
For
rankings,
sure.
right?
Yep.
So they go into it and they're like, "Oh, this team's USA Hockey. This team's USA Hockey. What is Northwood? Like, who is Northwood? Like, if there's a kid from Arizona or somewhere, Colorado, wherever, right? Like, they might not know us as well as maybe a New England player. And now we're
Right.
competing in New England with 100 schools or whatever. I don't even know how many there are. But like,
Right.
so when we started to branch out, like this year on our team, we have 3 kids from the Junior Kings. We have a kid from Dallas. We have a couple of kids from Colorado, Indiana, Chicago, Mission, like Florida Alliance. We have kids from all over. So like that's part of our recruiting is like going out to some of these tournaments. We'll go to the state tournament or we'll go to the national tournament. We'll watch some of these younger kids and be like, huh, I guarantee you they're talking to Shattuck.
Right.
Why aren't they talking to us? So it's different. I mean, yeah, from that sense, yeah, it can make sense for us to get nationally recognized from that sense. But for us, like I said, like we really want to push the kids in development.
Yeah.
Going to a national tournament and playing 2 games in a day and then playing some team that played 20 games in the fall and now they just get back together and play in the spring. Like, is that really what we're trying to do? Like to teach
Yeah.
kids about, being a team and winning it as a team, or is it just an all-star team of six different prep schools that take the best kids and they just want to win it? Like what, so
Hey, yeah,
um
I think I'm the
it's hit
reason
or
why. I think,
miss. I mean, 16s we could probably do it. Like we could have done it this year, and everyone's like, "Why don't we do nationals?" I'm like, we just like all the best teams that we want to play, we've played.
you
So
play
like,
them.
why do we have to fly to Vegas, to go play? I don't even know, but or wherever it is, Vegas, California, Wisconsin. It's been New Jersey. I think for the younger groups, I think it might mean a little bit more because it's like you're more playing for something at a younger age. You get to
Yeah,
go with this is like your final weekend, maybe playing with your 15 or 16 team. The parents obviously love it. It's like the biggest thing in the world is going to nationals and getting the
yeah.
Chipotle
I think
stamp
you're right. The
sweatshirt.
parents love it. The parents love
So and I've been to them. It's fun. You get to meet some people and go around. But for us, like I said, it's really like we want to develop people. We want to put them in the best spot. I think we do a good enough job where like, hey, going to the national tournament isn't going to all of a sudden you go to nationals, you win nationals. Like we have a couple of kids on our team that won nationals. Doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're like an NHL draft pick because they
it.
went to
Right. Yeah,
nationals, right? So like
I agree.
that's part of it. That's part of the development. That's part of what we do. It definitely might have a little bit of exposure for them, but I think at the end of the day, if they're a good enough player, like we always talk about, if you're good enough, people will find you. Like people start talking. And once you kind of get one person on the train, three or four other ones start coming along. So it's that's all part of it. I'm not knocking the nationals, but and we've definitely been back and forth on it for years. And then like Shawn said, every year in recruiting, it's like, okay, we have six international kids. Do we just say, hey,
Yeah.
sorry, like we don't have anywhere for you to play, like we're national bound, you can't play here? Like, is that
Yeah,
what
and
we
I
really want
mention
to
it
do?
just because, as
Yeah,
like when I was there, it came up, right?
yeah, yeah,
I was an advocate against it because of, I think there is some value from the experience, and I think it's fun for kids and that like
yeah,
so to
totally.
deny
Yeah,
is that, but I always felt that same idea of like I thought it was more. I didn't think the benefits outweighed what it cost us in terms of how it limited us. And the reason I
yeah,
bring it up is because like I know for some families I get asked that question and wanted to give you guys a chance just to talk about like it is an intentional decision you've made, right?
yeah,
It's not by accident or fear or whatever that you're not doing it.
yeah.
It's thought. So, all right, the last thing we should talk about here briefly is on the heels of our men's and women's team winning gold medals. You guys play, which I think people don't often know, like your home rink is the Miracle on Ice, right? And I think for kids having an opportunity not only to experience that, but be a part of a program that has a locker room and that's their facility is pretty cool and totally different than what they would see at any other school.
Shawn, you take this one. Go ahead. I'll
Yeah,
chime in if I need to.
I think the experience over there, it couldn't be any better, to be honest, for our guys. Like they get treated really well. We obviously have a locker room that, we keep our stuff in every single day. And, for us to be able to bounce around between the three rinks at the Olympic Center is pretty special. There some teams that are playing in a basically a pole barn every single day, and they're freezing, and it's just not a fun experience to be at the rink where, our guys, whether we're on the 80 or on the USA or on the 32, like there's some story kind of that is tied to one of those rinks. And I think being able to walk down the hallway and you see the plaque with her Brick's face on it and, you know, kind of showcasing what locker room they got dressed in 1980, and how well maintained the facility is. Again, how, we're treated like, like the main tenant. Like I don't necessarily think we are with Can-Am, but um, I think we get treated really well. Where the rink staff knows our guys, they communicate with them. They're wearing Northwood apparel, and it's a really cool place to be able to call home. And it's only it's not on campus, but it might as well be. Like we
Yeah.
drive 1 minute around the lake, and we've had guys that miss the bus because they're slow or they're late, and they can run to the rink in 10 minutes. So it's we've had that happen, but It's as good of a setup as we could possibly have without having a rink on campus. And, we don't get to play at home as often as we'd like to, but when we do, like every team that comes in town, they're like, guys, you guys are so lucky that you get to play here, and we love coming up here. And if there's an open weekend that we can schedule more games, like please let us know. So we are very lucky, and I think it's a big recruiting point for us, where when kids come and skate with us on their visits, they're like in awe. They get to step out on the bench of the 1980 rink, look around, and see all the gold medal winners' names, plastered all over the walls, and just how big of an arena it actually is. So yeah, we're really lucky to call that place home.
And I'll say, just for people who maybe they've seen other school or contextual when they're listening to this, like, yes, it's not on campus, but I would, having been at least one of the schools I worked at, the distance from, my dorm to where that rink was on campus was probably further than the distance from, the main building at Northwood to where the Olympic Center is. And I think that I mention that just for people, like, as they hear this, like, I always think about Northwood's campus as Lake Placid as the whole, right? Sort of from that main building encompassing down onto Main Street where there's another academic building. And so yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, I
I think
think
it's yeah, I'll just chime in quick. I don't even know if we know the magnitude of what that building is. Like we go in there
yeah,
every day and we're on the ice and we're like, okay, we're in the 80 rink, we're in the 32, we're in the US. Like there's people that come into that rink that are like in tears,
yeah,
when they get in there, and there's always people on tours watching our practices and the kids get a hoot out of it because there's 20 people standing by the bench at practice watching, like wondering who we are and what we're doing on this ice.
yeah,
And some of my buddies, you send them pictures when you walk into the rink in the morning, or like the view of like the mountains and the ski jumps, and it's sunny out, and you're like, this is the greatest view in the world. We're so
yep,
lucky. Every day we pull up to the rink, I'm like, oh my gosh. Granted the sun's out, but I don't even think we know how big it is. Like we just go
yeah,
there and we're like, okay, we're in the 80 rink. There's Herb Brooks. There's the new statue they just put up. There's Al Michaels,
yep,
signature on the wall. And like they were all just here in town not that long ago for that event. But it's bigger than we could even talk about. And like the US winning the gold medal there, obviously it's crazy. I think it was February 22nd. And it
yep,
was funny because they won it, 46 years later. And I was saying Northwood won PHC on the same day too. So
yeah,
it was just like in Lake Placid, like it's crazy how you think about that stuff. But I don't even know if like the kids, I mean, I feel like we're at the day and age right now where like 1980 for us is a long time. That was a year I was born in 87.
I was
Like,
born in '80, just so like, yeah, we're getting
yeah,
old, right?
so these kids, they know the movie.
Right, they
The
know
Netflix,
Miracle the movie.
yeah, and the
That's
Netflix
it.
thing just came out, which was really cool to see like a different side of it. But like, I don't even think they realize it. Like they're
Right,
just like, oh, it's the rink, like it's the Olympic Center. Like, no,
right,
like this is like one of the craziest events in all of sports history. And I don't even feel that sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am literally
yeah,
standing at center ice where this event takes place. So it's really, really special to be a part of that. And just like I said, you see some of the people walk in there that maybe they were at the game, maybe they had someone that
yep,
they were related to that was there, maybe somehow related to someone on the team, or they remember where they were, or maybe they walk into this place and they're like, it's like the most, it's like, I guess, I don't know, maybe for a kid, it's like the first time they see Mickey Mouse at Disney or something, like
well,
they're
it's a
just like,
marker in American history for
yeah,
sure, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
it's really cool. We're lucky. And yeah, I don't really even know how to describe the feeling of being in there all the time. Some days you get the chills, and some days you're just like, this is crazy that we're
yeah,
actually in here.
yeah.
Should be like
Um,
blocked off to everybody or something. I don't know. It's crazy.
Great. Well, thanks, guys. Is there anything we missed that I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I could talk too much sometimes. And with Shawn
No,
and for us, like I think from the start, it's pretty special to be back somewhere where you actually went, see it kind of come full circle. And I remember talking to Shawn when I was trying to make Shawn back here, and he was coaching in college, and he's like, Shawn can say it too. Like he came back and he was like, wow, you get the same emotions and
Yeah.
feelings that you were when you first walked into the doors of this place. And it's just really cool to kind of you're giving back all the time. It's part of the sport. Like you want to give back, but like giving back here to what it did for me as a student, I'm sure Shawn could say the same, or a lot of the kids that have gone through here is just truly it's a pretty special place. Like I say to everybody, like we don't have chandeliers, we don't have the bells and whistles. Like I say, like we have some holes in the walls and we have a leaky roof in the winter when it gets 3 feet of snow on the roof and it's freezing cold here, but there's a lot of really good things that trump all of that.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, right? Like I'm not unbiased, right? I think it's an awesome place. I think, I spent a lot of time there. My kids in some ways grew up on that campus, right? So like it holds a special place in my heart. But I'll say like, yeah, I think for me, as I've started this and maybe to close it, right, I do describe it as I think it holds this unique place, right, where particularly in this day and age, there's this push towards these academy models and doing all of that. And we could talk about the values or pros and cons of that. And I think there is, the traditional prep school model, and you can talk about the pros and cons of that, right? And to me, Northwood is this place that sits in the middle of providing this athletic experience that is really hard for prep schools to replicate, and this academic experience and the social experience, and as we talked about living in the dorm with that, no other sort of extended athletic model is going to be able to replicate. And as you guys said, it's not going to be right for every kid. And I still live up here in the North Country, and it certainly is cold. So like, yeah, you gotta dress up. But like for those kids who are seeking something that maybe is a little bit different, like I don't think there's another. To me, it is such a unique all option that I'm glad you guys came on here so that we can talk more about it. And I think yeah, it's awesome. I love it. So thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.
All right, thanks,
All right.
Brad. Yep,
Thanks,
see ya.
Brad.
Yep.